The August heat pressed against the windows of Westridge High School like an unwelcome guest, making the air conditioning work overtime in the main hallway. Reese Holloway adjusted the straps of her worn backpack and kept her eyes on the scuffed linoleum tiles as she navigated through the river of students flowing toward their first period classes. She'd learned long ago that invisibility was a survival skill. Shoulders slightly hunched, head down, moving with the current rather than against it. She was small, maybe 5'3" in her sneakers, with a slight build that made her look younger than she was. Her dark hair hung straight past her shoulders, usually falling forward to hide her face. Today, she wore an oversized flannel shirt over a faded band t-shirt and jeans that had seen better days. Everything about her presentation screamed, "Don't notice me." Westridge High sat in the heart of Riverside, Ohio, a mid-sized town where Friday night football games drew bigger crowds than church services. The school itself was a sprawling brick building from the 1970s, recently renovated with new gymnasium and cafeteria additions, but still maintaining that institutional feel. Fluorescent lights, rows of dented lockers, and walls painted in supposedly motivating shades of blue and grey. The student body numbered around 1,800, large enough to get lost in if you knew how. Reese had transferred here 3 weeks into the current semester, which put her at a disadvantage socially. The friend groups had already solidified, the hierarchies established. She'd come from Portland with her aunt after her mother's death 6 months ago, an aneurysm, sudden and brutal. The move had been necessary. Her aunt was her only family, and Reese couldn't afford to live alone. Not that she'd told anyone here that story. She kept to herself, attended classes, and tried not to draw attention. The bell rang for first period, and Reese slipped into her seat in AP English, near the back corner. Mrs. Patterson was already writing discussion questions on the whiteboard about The Great Gatsby. Reese opened her notebook and began copying them down, her handwriting small and precise. "Nice shirt," a voice whispered behind her, dripping with sarcasm. "Is that from this decade?" Reese didn't turn around. She recognized the voice. Ashley Morrison, one of the popular crowd. Reese kept writing, letting the comment bounce off her like rain off a windshield. She'd heard worse. The day proceeded in its typical fashion. Second period biology, where she worked alone on lab assignments while everyone else partnered up. Third period world history, where she answered questions when called on but never volunteered. Fourth period calculus, where the equations provided a welcome escape into pure logic. Then came lunch. The cafeteria was a battlefield disguised as a dining hall, all social hierarchies on full display. The athletes claimed the center tables, the performing arts kids took over the corner by the stage, the tech students huddled near the vending machines. Reese had mapped it all out in her first week, identifying the safe zones and the danger areas. She grabbed a tray, the pizza looked least offensive today, and headed toward her usual spot at a half-empty table near the emergency exit. She'd just sat down when she felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. Reese glanced up. Trent Vaughan was staring at her from 3 tables over. Trent was everything Reese wasn't. Tall, broad-shouldered, confident to the point of arrogance. He was the starting quarterback for the Westridge Wildcats, son of Richard Vaughan, who owned half the car dealerships in the county. Trent had that particular brand of attractiveness that came from good genetics, expensive dental work, and the absolute certainty that the world would arrange itself to his liking. His blonde hair was styled with product, his Letterman jacket worn like armor. Around him sat his usual crew. Brock Ashford, his linebacker best friend with a neck like a tree trunk, and Kyle Dennison, a wiry kid with cruel eyes who seemed to enjoy chaos for its own sake. Reese looked away first, back to her pizza. She'd learned to read danger, and Trent Vaughan registered as a Category 5 hurricane. Best to stay off his radar entirely. She almost made it through the meal, unnoticed. Almost. As she stood to leave, carrying her tray toward the disposal area, someone's foot shot out. Reese stumbled, caught herself, but her backpack slipped off one shoulder. Strong hands grabbed it. "Whoa, careful there," Trent said, his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. He held her backpack by one strap, examining it with exaggerated interest. "This thing weighs a ton. What are you carrying, Rox?" "Can I have it back, please?" Reese kept her voice quiet, neutral. Sure. Trent handed it over, but not before giving her a long, assessing look. "You're new, right? What's your name?" "Reese." "Reese." He repeated it like he was testing how it tasted. "That's different. You don't talk much, do you, Reese?" She didn't answer, just shouldered her backpack and moved past him. Behind her she heard Brock's deep laugh, and Kyle's snickering. Her face burned, but she kept walking, dumped her tray and headed for the library where she'd spend the rest of lunch period. The library was her sanctuary, quiet, organized, with clear rules. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, gave her a welcoming nod as Reese settled into her favorite corner chair with a worn paperback. She tried to focus on the words, but her hands were shaking slightly. That encounter with Trent hadn't been random. He'd noticed her, which meant she was no longer invisible, and being visible was dangerous. Tuesday arrived with grey skies and a chill that promised fall was coming. Reese navigated the hallways with her usual caution, but she felt eyes tracking her movements now. During the passing period between second and third periods, she was walking past the main trophy case when she heard Trent's voice behind her. "Hey, Ghost Girl!" Reese kept walking. Ghost Girl. Apparently that was her new nickname. "I'm talking to you." His voice was louder now, more insistent. Several students slowed, sensing drama. Reese stopped, turned. Trent was approaching with Brock and Kyle, flanking him like backup dancers. She waited, saying nothing. "You always this rude?" Trent asked, stopping a few feet away. "Someone talks to you. Normal people answer." "You called me Ghost Girl," Reese said quietly. "That's not my name." "Oh, she speaks," Kyle grinned. "We thought maybe you were mute or something." "Just shy," Brock added, his tone mockingly gentle. "Right? Just a shy little thing?" Reese looked at Trent, ignoring the others. "What do you want?" The question seemed to surprise him. Most people didn't question Trent Vaughn, they just scrambled to please him or get out of his way. His blue eyes narrowed slightly. "Just being friendly," he said. "This is a friendly school. We like to welcome new students, make them feel included." "I'm fine, thanks." Reese turned to leave. "We're not done talking," Trent said, his voice hardening. Reese looked back at him. "I have class." She walked away, feeling their stares burning into her back. Behind her she heard Kyle's voice. "Who does she think she is?" The rest of Tuesday passed without incident, but Reese felt the shift. She'd challenged Trent, however mildly, and he wasn't the type to let that go. By Wednesday, she'd confirmed her suspicions. The cafeteria incident happened in full view of at least 200 students. Reese was carrying her tray, spaghetti today, when Brock accidentally bumped into her. The collision was clearly deliberate, and Reese managed to keep hold of the tray, but some of the sauce sloshed onto her shirt. "Oh man, sorry," Brock said, his apology completely insincere. "I didn't see you there." "You're so small." Trent and Kyle appeared immediately, as if they'd been waiting nearby. "Dude, watch where you're going," Trent said to Brock, but he was grinning. Then to Reese, "You okay? Need some napkins?" "I'm fine." Reese set her tray down, grabbed some napkins from a nearby dispenser, and dabbed at her shirt. The red stain was spreading. "That's not going to come out," Kyle observed helpfully. "Spaghetti sauce is like permanent." A crowd was forming now, students sensing entertainment. Reese ignored them all, cleaned herself up as best she could, and sat down at an empty table. She ate mechanically, not tasting anything, aware of the whispers and glances. "Mr. Rodriguez," The cafeteria monitor had been standing right there and had done nothing. That was Wednesday's lesson. The adults either didn't see or didn't care. Thursday brought the books. Reese was at her locker between 5th and 6th periods, swapping out her history textbook for her English materials, when someone slammed into the locker next to hers with enough force to make the metal rattle. Her books tumbled to the floor, pages splaying open. "My bad," Kyle said, not looking sorry at all. "Guess I tripped." Reese knelt to gather her materials. Kyle's sneaker came down on her English notebook, smudging dirt across the cover. He lifted his foot slowly, deliberately, maintaining eye contact the whole time. "You should be more careful," he said, "leaving your stuff all over the floor like that." Reese said nothing. She collected her books, stood, and walked away, heading for English class. Her hands wanted to shake, but she kept them steady. Behind her she heard Kyle's laugh, joined by others. They were testing her, seeing how far they could push before she broke. The answer, Reese knew, was very far. She'd been trained to endure much worse than this. Friday afternoon, the parking lot. Westridge High's student parking lot was a sprawling expanse of cracked asphalt, where the social hierarchy could be read in the vehicles. Trent's lifted truck with custom rims, the beat-up Hondas and ancient minivans of the scholarship kids, everything in between. Reese didn't have a car. She walked the 1.5 miles to her aunt's apartment, which suited her fine. Walking gave her time to think. She was cutting through the parking lot, taking the path toward the side exit that led to her usual route home, when Trent's truck pulled up alongside her. The engine rumbled aggressively, modified for maximum noise. The passenger window rolled down, and Kyle leaned out. "Need a ride, ghost girl?" "No thanks." Reese kept walking. The truck crawled along beside her. "Come on, don't be unfriendly. We're going your way." "I like walking." "She likes walking," Trent's voice came from the driver's seat, mocking. "Hear that, guys?" "She likes walking." Brock's laugh boomed from the back seat. "Maybe she's training for something." "You training, ghost girl? Going to run a marathon?" Reese reached the edge of the parking lot and stepped onto the sidewalk. The truck couldn't follow here without driving on the grass. It idled for a moment, engine grumbling. Then Trent revved it once, an aggressive roar, and peeled away, tires squealing. She walked home in the September afternoon heat, her backpack heavy on her shoulders, and let herself think about what was happening. This was a pattern she recognized, the testing phase. They were establishing dominance, seeing if she'd fight back, cry, tell authorities, or just endure. Each day they'd escalate a little more until they found her breaking point. What they didn't know, what nobody here knew, was that Reese didn't break easily. She'd been forged in a much hotter fire than this. The weekend passed in quiet isolation. Reese's aunt, Patricia, worked double shifts at the hospital and was barely home. The apartment was small but clean, a one-bedroom where Reese slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. She didn't mind. After her mother's death, she'd learned to find comfort in small spaces and solitude. Saturday morning, she did her homework. Saturday afternoon, she went for a run through Riverside's modest downtown, pushing herself hard, letting the physical exertion burn away the week's stress. Saturday evening, she made dinner, pasta and salad, and left a plate in the fridge for her aunt. Sunday was harder. Sundays had been her mother's day. Lazy mornings, pancakes, old movies on TV. Now Sundays just felt empty. Reese spent it reading, avoiding social media, where she knew she'd find nothing good. She'd seen the looks people gave her at school. She didn't need to see what they were posting online. Sunday night, lying in the dark on her pull-out couch, Reese thought about her mother's last words to her. They'd been in the hospital, Sarah Holloway already fading, knowing she wouldn't make it. "Promise me something, baby," her mother had whispered, her hand weak in Reese's. "Promise me you'll stop fighting, just live a normal life. No more competitions, no more training, just be a regular kid. Please. Mum, promise me." Her mother's eyes had been desperate. I don't want you to end up like your father. Please, Reese, promise. So she'd promised, and Sarah Holloway had died that night, taking with her all the explanations Reese had never gotten about why her father's path had been so terrible, what exactly had happened to him. All Reese knew was that he'd been a fighter, professional, accomplished, and that somehow it had destroyed him and eventually killed him when she was too young to remember. Her mother had spent years trying to erase that legacy, but Reese had sought it out anyway. Found a gym in Portland when she was 12, told them she wanted to learn self-defense. The coach, a grizzled ex-Marine named Torres, had recognized something in her, natural talent maybe, or genetic predisposition, and had trained her seriously. Brazilian jiu-jitsu primarily, supplemented with Muay Thai and boxing. By the time her mother got sick, Reese had been competing in regional tournaments, winning more often than not, being scouted for nationals. Then came the diagnosis, the rapid decline, the promise. Reese had walked away from all of it, moved to Ohio with her aunt, started over, buried that part of herself deep where no one could find it. But muscle memory didn't forget. 6 years of training didn't just evaporate. Her body still moved in certain ways, still evaluated threats automatically, still calculated angles and leverage and force vectors without conscious thought. She just refused to act on any of it, even when every instinct screamed at her to fight back. Monday morning, week 2, and the gloves came off. Reese was at her locker before first period when she heard Trent's voice echoing down the hallway. "There's our favorite ghost." She didn't turn around, just continued organizing her books. The hallway was crowded, students arriving, conversations overlapping, locker doors slamming, plenty of witnesses. "I'm talking to you." Trent's hand appeared on the locker next to hers, slamming it shut with a bang that made nearby students jump. He leaned against it, blocking her path. "You know, it's pretty rude to ignore people." Reese met his eyes. "I heard you. Then answer when someone talks to you." He was standing too close, deliberately invading her space. Brock and Kyle materialized behind him. "We're trying to be friendly, and you act like we're invisible." "I just want to get to class." "Class doesn't start for 5 minutes, Kyle chimed in. "What's the rush?" "Yeah, stay and chat," Brock added, his bulk blocking the hallway in the other direction. They had her boxed in now, her back to the lockers, the 3 of them forming a wall. A small crowd was gathering, students slowing to watch. Reese felt her heart rate elevate slightly, but kept her breathing steady. She'd been in tighter spots than this. "Look," she said quietly, "I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Trent's eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise. "Who said anything about trouble?" "We're just talking. Unless you think talking is trouble, do you have something against talking?" "She definitely has something against talking," Kyle said. "She's like the quietest person in school. Maybe she's a mute. You mute, ghost girl?" "Her name's Reese," someone in the crowd said, a girl's voice Reese didn't recognize. "Shut up, Jenna," Brock said without turning around. Trent was still staring at Reese, his expression hardening. "What's your problem with us?" "We've been nothing but nice to you." The accusation was so absurd that Reese almost laughed, but she caught herself. Laughing would escalate this. Instead, she said, "You haven't been nice, but it doesn't matter. Can I please just go to class?" "Not until you tell me what your problem is." Trent's voice had dropped lower, more threatening. "You walk around here like you're too good to talk to anyone, like we're beneath you or something. That's pretty arrogant for someone who looks like they shop at Goodwill." A few people in the crowd snickered. Reese felt her face heat up, but kept her expression neutral. "I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just want to be left alone." "Well, that's not how it works here," Trent said. "You don't get to just ignore people, especially not people who are trying to be friendly." He reached out and flicked her shoulder, not hard, but dismissively. "So maybe adjust that attitude, yeah?" The warning bell rang. The crowd began to disperse, disappointed that nothing more dramatic had happened. Trent stepped back, his point made, and walked away with his friends. Reese watched them go, forcing her hands to unclench. She'd felt it just then, the old reflex. When Trent had flicked her shoulder, her body had wanted to respond, to trap his wrist, to apply pressure, to control the situation. But she'd overridden it, stayed still, let it happen. Keep your promise, she told herself. Don't fight. Tuesday's cafeteria incident was worse. Reese had grabbed her lunch, a sandwich and an apple today, and was navigating toward her usual table when it happened. She didn't see exactly who did it, but suddenly Kyle was falling toward her, his foot apparently catching on something, his whole body momentum carrying him forward. His lunch tray went flying. Chicken nuggets, French fries, and a chocolate milkshake hit Reese like a food grenade. The cold milkshake soaked through her shirt and jeans, the fries scattered across the floor, and a nugget actually bounced off her forehead before falling to the ground. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Reese stood there dripping as Kyle scrambled to his feet. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice loud and theatrical. "I totally tripped." "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. She couldn't trust her voice right now. The laughter was still rolling through the cafeteria like a wave, students standing up to get a better view, phones appearing to capture the moment. "That's so much food," Brock's voice carried across the room. "Someone get her a towel." "She looks like a chocolate fountain exploded," another voice added to more laughter. Mr. Rodriguez was there now, surveying the mess. All right, show's over. Kyle, that was careless. Both of you go get cleaned up. Someone get the mop." "I really am sorry," Kyle said again, his eyes meeting Reese's with barely concealed glee. "Total accident." Reese walked toward the bathroom, shoes squelching, aware of every stare. In the hallway outside the cafeteria, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Trent leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching her with that assessing look. "That was unfortunate," he said. "Kyle's always been clumsy." Reese stared at him, saying nothing. "You know what your problem is?" Trent pushed off the wall, walking closer. "You don't know how things work here. This school has an order to it. People have their places. And you're trying to exist outside of that, like you're special somehow, like you don't have to play by the rules." "I just want to eat lunch and go to class," Reese said, her voice tight. "Yeah, but you want to do it on your terms. Acting all superior, not talking to anyone, judging us with those quiet little looks." He was close now, speaking softly enough that only she could hear. "That's not going to work. You either get with the program, be friendly, show some respect, or things are going to keep being difficult for you. Understand?" Reese understood perfectly. He was establishing dominance, demanding submission. She'd seen this pattern before, in the gym, on the mats, in the ring. Bullies needed to control their environment, needed to see fear in their victims' eyes. Trent Vaughan was no different than 100 others she'd encountered. The difference was, she usually could fight back, usually was allowed to. "I understand," she said quietly. "Good." Trent smiled, satisfied. "Get cleaned up. You smell like dairy." He walked away, leaving Reese standing in the hallway, covered in food, shaking not from fear, but from the effort of staying still. In the bathroom, she cleaned herself as best she could with paper towels and hand soap. Her shirt was ruined. Her jeans were dry but smelled terrible. She stayed in there until the lunch period ended, then went directly to the nurse's office and asked to go home sick. The nurse, Mrs. Keller, took one look at her chocolate-stained shirt and sad eyes and signed the release without questions. Reese walked home through the October afternoon, her backpack heavy, her clothes damp and smelly, and thought about promises and how much they cost to keep. Wednesday was the hallway humiliation. Between third and fourth periods, in the main corridor near the trophy cases, it happened. Reese was walking to calculus when someone grabbed her backpack from behind. She stumbled backward as the straps dug into her shoulders, then felt the pack being unzipped. What the hell? She spun around to find Kyle with his hand in her backpack, pulling out her things. Notebooks hit the floor, pens scattered, her calculator bounced off someone's shoe. "Just checking what Ghost Girl carries around," Kyle announced to the gathering crowd. He held up her English notebook, flipping through it. "Ooh, look at this. She takes really neat notes. Like, really neat. Are you OCD or something?" Trent appeared, because of course he did, with Brock right behind. "Kyle, what are you doing?" "That's her stuff." "Just looking," Kyle said. But he was grinning. He found something tucked in the back of the notebook, a photo. Reese's heart dropped. "Is this your mom?" Kyle held up the picture. Sarah Holloway at the beach, smiling at the camera, taken maybe a year before she got sick. "She's pretty. Where is she? Does she know her daughter's a total weirdo?" "Give it back." Reese's voice was harder now, controlled, but edged with something sharp. "Touchy," Kyle said, but something in her tone made him hesitate. At least a dozen students had phones out, recording. This would be all over social media within the hour. Reese Holloway's stuff scattered across the floor, her backpack violated, her private photo displayed for entertainment. "Dude, give it back," Trent said, playing the reasonable one. "That's too far." Kyle tossed the photo at Reese's feet. She knelt to pick it up along with her scattered belongings, aware of the cameras, the whispers, the laughter. Someone had stepped on her calculator. The screen was cracked. Her notebooks were bent, pages torn. No teachers intervened. They were all in classrooms, doors closed, ignoring the commotion in the halls between periods. Reese gathered everything, stuffed it back in her backpack, and walked to calculus with her head up. She refused to let them see her cry. She refused to give them that. But in calculus, staring at equations she couldn't focus on, she felt something shifting inside her. The calm she'd maintained was cracking at the edges. That night, she found herself on social media despite her better judgment. The videos were everywhere. Ghost Girl trending locally, comments ranging from sympathetic to cruel. Most were cruel. Who even is she? Why doesn't she fight back, lol? She looks like she's about to cry. Someone should help her. Nah, she's weird anyway. Trent and Kyle are hilarious. This is bullying, though. She could just leave if she doesn't like it. Reese closed the apps, set her phone aside, and stared at the ceiling. How many more weeks could she endure this? How long before she broke her promise? Thursday brought the locker vandalism. Reese arrived at school to find her locker door covered in stickers and marker. Ghost Girl was written in huge letters across the front. Crude drawings decorated the surface, a stick figure with a rain cloud over its head. The words, "friendless freak," and worse thing, she didn't want to read closely. She stood there for a long moment, backpack over one shoulder, staring at the defacement. Other students passed by, some glancing, some stopping to look, none offering to help. Reese went to the main office and reported it. The secretary, Mrs. Patterson, sighed like this was a personal inconvenience. "Do you know who did it?" "No." "Well, we can't punish anyone without proof. I'll send maintenance to clean it." Mrs. Patterson made a note, clearly ready to move on. "Try not to antagonize the other students." "I haven't antagonized anyone." Teenagers can be territorial about social dynamics. Maybe try being friendlier, join a club or something. Reese left the office before she said something she'd regret. The advice was useless. This wasn't about her being unfriendly. This was about Trent Vaughan establishing dominance, and everyone else either cheering him on or looking the other way. She went to class with her locker still vandalized. It stayed that way until lunch, when maintenance finally got around to cleaning it. The marker came off mostly, but the metal was scratched where someone had keyed "freak" into the surface. Friday afternoon, parking lot, round 2. Reese was walking home, as always, when Trent's truck appeared again. This time, it didn't drive alongside her. It pulled directly into her path, forcing her to stop. All three of them got out: Trent, Brock, and Kyle. "We need to have a serious talk," Trent said, walking toward her. They were at the edge of the parking lot where the security cameras didn't quite reach. Reese knew because she'd mapped them her first week. "I have nothing to say to you." "That's your problem right there," Trent said, stopping a few feet away. "You never have anything to say. You walk around like you're above everyone, like we're not worth your time. That's disrespectful." "I'm not above anyone. I just want to be left alone." "You've said that before," Kyle chimed in, "but that's not how it works. You're part of this school. You don't get to just opt out." Brock cracked his knuckles, a deliberate intimidation gesture. "You need to learn some respect." Reese looked at each of them, calculating distances, weights, reach advantages, old habits. "What do you want from me?" "An apology would be nice," Trent said, "for being such a stuck-up bitch all the time." "I haven't done anything to apologize for." Trent's jaw tightened. "See, that right there? That attitude. You really think you're better than us, don't you?" "No. I think you're insecure bullies who need to hurt other people to feel important." The words came out before Reese could stop them, sharp and clean and absolutely reckless. The air seemed to freeze. Trent's face went red, then pale. Kyle's eyes widened. Brock stepped forward, hands curling into fists. "What did you just say?" Trent's voice was dangerously quiet. Reese's fight-or-flight response kicked in, flooding her system with adrenaline. Her body wanted to shift into a fighting stance, wanted to prepare for the attack she knew was coming. But she forced herself to stay still, hands at her sides, non-threatening. "I'm going home now," she said, and started walking. "We're not done here." Trent grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around, and there it was, contact. His hand on her shoulder, gripped tight, aggressive. Every instinct Reese had screamed at her to respond, to use the leverage to break the grip and put him on the ground where he belonged. But she'd made a promise. "Let go," she said quietly. "Or what?" Trent's face was close to hers now, his breath hot. "What are you going to do, ghost girl?" Reese looked at his hand on her shoulder, then back at his face. "Nothing," she said, "because I'm not like you." She twisted away from his grip, not a trained technique, just an awkward shrug, and walked quickly toward the sidewalk. Behind her, she heard Kyle. "Dude, let her go. Coach will kill us if we get suspended before the game." Reese didn't look back. She walked the 1.5 miles home with her heart pounding, hands shaking, mind racing. She'd almost broken. When he grabbed her, her body had been ready to move, to fight, to win. It would have been so easy, but her mother's face had flashed in her mind, pale in that hospital bed, pleading, and Reese had chosen the harder path. She just didn't know how much longer she could keep choosing it. The weekend was long and lonely. Reese ran harder, pushed herself until her muscles burned and her lungs ached, trying to exhaust the restless energy that kept building inside her. She did homework, read, avoided social media, and thought too much. Sunday evening, her aunt actually had a night off and made dinner. Patricia Holloway was in her late 40s, a nurse who'd seen too much, but somehow maintained her kindness. She served spaghetti and garlic bread and studied Reese across the small kitchen table. "You're quieter than usual," Patricia said. "How's school?" "Fine." "Reese, it's fine, really. Just adjusting." Patricia's eyes, the same shade of brown as Reese's mother's had been, were too perceptive. "You know you can talk to me if something's wrong." "I know." Reese managed a smile. "I'm okay. Just miss Mom sometimes." That was true enough to be believable. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Me too, honey, me too." They ate in companionable silence, and Reese felt grateful for her aunt's restraint. Patricia didn't push, didn't pry, just offered presence and support. It was enough. Monday morning, week 3, and the campaign went digital. Reese saw it as soon as she checked her phone before school. A fake Instagram account using her name and a distorted photo of her face. The bio read, "Friendless freak who thinks she's special. Ghost Girl, Westridge loser." The account had posted throughout the weekend. Edited photos of Reese with mocking captions, screenshots of her schedule with commentary about how she had no friends in any of her classes, a poll asking, "Why does Ghost Girl think she's too good for everyone?" The account already had 300 followers, a quarter of the school. Reese reported it, knowing it wouldn't matter. Fake accounts were easy to make and hard to trace. She went to school carrying the knowledge that her humiliation was now permanently digital, accessible to anyone, shareable across platforms. The hallways felt different that morning. More eyes, more whispers, more phones pointed in her direction. The account had made her official school entertainment. "Hey, I saw your Insta," some guy she'd never spoken to said as she walked past. "Pretty harsh, man." Reese kept walking. Tuesday brought the rumors. They started subtly, whispered in bathrooms and between classes, but by lunch they'd crystallized into multiple contradictory stories, all designed to damage her reputation. Reese was a drug dealer. Reese had gotten expelled from her last school for attacking a teacher. Reese's mother was in prison. Reese had a secret boyfriend and sent explicit photos. Reese was a pathological liar. Reese had threatened to shoot up the school. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter. Rumors had momentum and malice. By the end of the day, students she'd never met were looking at her with suspicion or disgust. Ms. Harper, her English teacher, pulled her aside after class. "Reese, I'm hearing some concerning things. If you're having issues, you need to speak with the counselor." "What issues?" "Well, Ms. Harper looked uncomfortable. "There are stories going around about you, and I just want you to know that if you're dealing with something, there are resources. The stories aren't true." Okay, good. But if you need someone to talk to, I'm fine." Reese left before the conversation could continue. The adults heard the rumors too, she realized, and instead of shutting them down or investigating their source, they were treating Reese like she was the problem. Wednesday was the classroom incident. Fourth period calculus, Mr. Stevens stepped out to take a phone call in the hallway. He'd barely been gone 30 seconds when Trent turned around in his seat, 2 rows ahead of Reese. "So, Ghost Girl," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "which of the rumors are true?" The class went quiet, all eyes on her. Reese kept her pencil moving, solving the equation in front of her, ignoring him. "Come on, don't be shy. Did you really attack a teacher at your old school?" "Leave her alone, Trent," someone said. Jenna again, the girl who'd defended her in the hallway. "I'm just asking questions," Trent said innocently. "Public service, really. We should know if we're sharing a classroom with someone dangerous." "You're the only dangerous person here," Reese said quietly, not looking up from her work. The class collectively inhaled. Trent's expression darkened. "What was that?" "You heard me." "I don't think I did." "See, I thought you just called me dangerous, which would be pretty stupid considering I've never done anything to you except try to be friendly." Reese finally looked up, met his eyes. "You vandalized my locker, spread lies about me, and had your friends assault me with food. That's not friendly." "Assault?" Trent laughed, but it sounded forced. "Kyle tripped. The locker thing had nothing to do with me, and rumors, people talk. That's not my fault." "You're a liar," Reese said, her voice still quiet but absolutely clear, "and a coward who needs his friends to do his dirty work." The classroom exploded in shocked whispers. Kyle, who sat near Trent, stood up. "Who do you think you are?" "Sit down, Kyle," Jenna said. "She can't talk to us like that," Brock added from the back. "Why not?" Reese asked, standing up now too. "You've been talking to me like that for weeks." "Or is it only bullying when you're the one doing it?" Mr. Stevens walked back in. What's going on here? Why is everyone standing? The moment broke. Students sat down, became suddenly fascinated with their work. Mr. Stevens looked between Trent and Reese, clearly sensing tension but not understanding its source. Nothing, Mr. Stevens, Trent said smoothly. Just a discussion. Well, discuss mathematics next time. Everyone back to work. Reese sat down, her heart pounding. She'd just broken her own rule about staying invisible. She'd confronted them publicly, challenged their narrative. It felt good for about 30 seconds. Then she realized what she'd done. She'd escalated this from harassment to open conflict, and she couldn't follow through with actual resistance. She'd promised not to fight, which meant she'd just made herself an even bigger target. The bathroom confrontation happened Thursday afternoon, right after 6th period. Reese was washing her hands when they walked in, not Trent and his friends, but a group of girls she barely knew. Ashley Morrison led them, the same girl who'd mocked her clothes that first week. "We need to talk to you," Ashley said, crossing her arms. Her 3 friends fanned out, blocking the exit. "About how you've been treating people." Reese dried her hands, calculating. 4 of them, 1 exit, all physically bigger than her. "I haven't treated anyone any way. That's the problem. You walk around like you're too good to talk to anyone. You're rude to Trent when he's just trying to be nice. And now you're spreading lies, calling him a bully." Ashley's face was flushed with righteous anger. "That's not okay. He is a bully. He's the quarterback. He's popular because he's nice to people, because he's fun, because he's a leader. You're just jealous because nobody likes you." "I don't want to be liked by anyone here," Reese said honestly. "That's obvious." One of Ashley's friends, a tall blonde in a cheerleader uniform, stepped closer. "You're not better than us just because you're all quiet and mysterious. It's actually pretty pathetic. I never said I was better than anyone. You don't have to say it. It's in the way you act. And you know what? You're making things weird for everyone." Ashley moved to block Reese's path to the door. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to Trent. Publicly. In the cafeteria tomorrow. You're going to admit you've been a bitch and that he never did anything wrong." Reese stared at her. "No. Excuse me. I'm not apologizing for things I didn't do. And I'm definitely not lying to protect him." Ashley's face went red. "You think you have a choice? Yes, you really don't. Either you apologize or things are going to get much worse for you. We're not talking about little pranks anymore. We're talking about making your life hell." "You're already doing that," Reese pointed out. The blonde cheerleader suddenly grabbed Reese's backpack and dumped it on the bathroom floor. Books, papers, pens scattered across the wet tiles. "Oops." Reese looked at the mess, then back at the 4 girls. Every muscle in her body was coiled, ready. She could end this confrontation in about 15 seconds, sweep the cheerleader's legs, control Ashley's wrist as she reached out, pivot to address the other 2, before they even understood what was happening. But she'd made a promise. "You're going to clean that up," Ashley demanded. "On your knees. Right now." Reese bent down and started gathering her things, not because Ashley told her to, but because she needed her materials for homework. The indignity of it burned, but not as much as breaking her promise would. "That's right," Ashley said, satisfaction in her voice. "That's where you belong, in the dirt." Reese finished collecting her scattered belongings and stood. She looked each girl in the eye, one by one, memorizing their faces. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm not better than you. But I'm not worse either. And someday you'll realize that what you're doing right now is something you'll be ashamed of for the rest of your life." She walked past them, shoulder-brushing Ashley's hard enough to move her aside, and left the bathroom. Behind her, she heard, "She's so weird." Friday brought a new twist, Trent's recruitment campaign. He'd apparently decided that isolated harassment wasn't enough. Now he wanted an army. Reese first noticed it at lunch, when she saw Trent talking to various groups, pointing toward her table, laughing. By the end of the period, at least 10 more students had joined his cause, approaching her in the hallways with casual insults or accidental bumps. "Move, ghost girl," someone said, shoving past her between classes. "Why are you even here?" Another asked loudly in the library. In the parking lot after school, a group of sophomore boys threw pebbles at her, laughing when she walked faster. "Run, ghost girl! Run!" Trent was building a mob mentality, safety in numbers, diffusion of responsibility. No single person was doing anything too terrible, so no single person felt guilty. But collectively, they were creating an atmosphere of hostility wherever Reese went. She made it home that Friday afternoon and locked herself in the bathroom. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, pale face, dark circles under her eyes, hair that needed washing, wearing clothes that had been donated because she couldn't afford new ones after the move. Ghost girl. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was just a ghost, trying to exist in a world that didn't want her. Her phone buzzed. Another notification from the fake Instagram account, which had now posted a "Where's Ghost Girl?" game, encouraging people to take photos if they spotted her and tag the account. She was being hunted for entertainment. Reese sat on the edge of the bathtub and put her head in her hands. She'd endured 3 weeks of escalating abuse. She'd kept her promise, stayed peaceful, refused to fight back. And what had it earned her? Nothing. It was getting worse. How much longer could she last? Week 4 began with something unexpected: kindness. Monday morning, Reese was sitting in the library during lunch, her new routine since the cafeteria had become too hostile, when someone sat down across from her. She looked up, ready to defend herself, and found a guy she'd never spoken to before. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark brown hair that curled slightly at the ends, and green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a button-down shirt and jeans, and carried a worn paperback copy of Dune. "This seat taken?" he asked, even though he was already sitting. "Apparently not," Reese said warily. "I'm Griffin." Griffin Mercer. He set his book down and extended his hand formally, like they were at a business meeting. Reese looked at his hand, then his face, trying to understand the angle. "What do you want?" "To sit here and eat lunch. Maybe have a conversation. Novel concept, I know." His voice had a slightly sarcastic edge, but not a mean one. "You're Reese, right? The girl everyone won't shut up about, I guess." "Well, I figured anyone that controversial must be interesting. Plus, you're reading Ursula K. Le Guin." He nodded at the book on her table, The Left Hand of Darkness. "Anyone with taste that good deserves at least one person who isn't an asshole." Despite herself, Reese almost smiled. "Everyone else is an asshole." "Oh, 90% minimum. This school is a wasteland of mediocre minds and even worse personalities, present company accepted, obviously." Griffin pulled out his lunch, a sandwich that looked homemade, much better quality than cafeteria fare. "So, are you going to tell me why Trent Vaughan has declared war on you, or is that classified?" "I didn't do anything. He just decided I was an acceptable target." "That tracks. Trent's whole personality is peak in high school. He needs to dominate someone to feel alive." Griffin took a bite of his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "For what it's worth, most people think what he's doing is shit. They just won't say it out loud because they're cowards. Are you saying it out loud? I just did. And I'll keep saying it. I don't like bullies, and I especially don't like when everyone else just watches." Reese studied him, still suspicious. "Why are you talking to me?" "Because I wanted to. Because you looked lonely. Because I actually believe in, basic human decency." Griffin shrugged. "Also, I've been there." "Not here. I transferred last year from California, but at my old school. Different circumstances, same basic dynamics. I know what it's like to be the target. What happened? Eventually, I fought back. Not physically, I'm more of a weaponize the school newspaper type, but I made enough noise that the administration had to actually do something. He met her eyes. You're handling it differently. Just taking it. That's either incredibly strong or incredibly stupid, and I haven't figured out which yet. Maybe both, Rhys admitted. Griffin grinned. I like that answer. So, Le Guin, thoughts on gender as a social construct in Gethenian society? And just like that, they fell into conversation. It was surreal. Rhys hadn't had a real conversation with anyone since arriving in Ohio. They talked about books, about science fiction world-building, about the differences between California and Ohio. Griffin was smart, quick-witted, and genuinely seemed to enjoy talking to her. The lunch period ended too quickly. Same time tomorrow? Griffin asked as they packed up their things. You sure you want to be seen with the school pariah? Absolutely positive. Besides, the library has better lighting than the cafeteria, much more flattering for my complexion. He waved and headed toward his next class, leaving Rhys standing there, slightly stunned. Tuesday, Griffin sat with her again. This time he brought interesting questions about a book he was reading, and they debated character motivations and plot structure. Other students passing through the library stared, whispered, but Griffin seemed oblivious or didn't care. You don't worry about what people think? Rhys asked. I worried a lot at my old school. It didn't help. So here, I've decided to just be myself and let everyone else figure out if they can handle it. He leaned back in his chair, balancing on two legs. Besides, I'm planning to get out of Ohio the second I graduate. None of this will matter in 2 years. 2 years is a long time. True, but it's also finite. That helps. Wednesday, Griffin didn't just sit with her in the library. He appeared at her locker between periods, leaning against the wall like they'd been friends forever. So, I was thinking, he said, you should come to the sci-fi club meeting on Thursday. It's mostly freshmen and sophomores who are terrified of me, which makes me the de facto leader. We could use someone with actual good taste. I don't do clubs. Right, because you're maintaining your mysterious loner persona. But consider, clubs meet after school, which means less time in hallways where people can bother you. Plus, we have snacks. Good snacks. I bring them myself because I don't trust anyone else's taste. Rhys found herself actually considering it. What do you talk about? Whatever we want. Last week we argued about whether Blade Runner is actually about what it means to be human or just about cool robots. This week we're supposed to discuss the new Foundation series, but honestly, I'm planning to hijack it and talk about Octavia Butler instead. I like Butler. Of course you do. You have excellent taste. That's settled then. Thursday, 3:30, room 214. Before Rhys could argue further, the bell rang, and Griffin was gone, leaving her standing at her locker, slightly bewildered by his confidence that she'd show up. Thursday afternoon, against her better judgment, Rhys went to room 214. The sci-fi club consisted of 7 members, 5 freshmen, 1 sophomore, and now Griffin and Rhys. They were all surprised to see her, not hostile, just surprised. Griffin introduced her simply as Rhys, who has read more Butler than all of you combined. And that was that. They spent an hour discussing Kindred, debating time travel mechanics and the book's approach to historical trauma. Rhys found herself talking more than she had in weeks, her guard slowly dropping as the conversation flowed. These kids were enthusiastic and genuine, interested in ideas rather than social hierarchies. When the meeting ended, one of the freshmen, a kid named Marcus with braces and a Star Trek shirt, approached her hesitantly. Hey, I just wanted to say, I think what's happening to you sucks, with Trent and everyone. It's not fair. Rhys didn't know how to respond to direct sympathy. Thanks. If you ever want to eat lunch with us, you can. We sit in Mr. Patterson's room because the cafeteria is loud. You'd be welcome. The offer was so sincere it made her chest tight. I'll think about it. Griffin walked her to the parking lot afterward. See, not everyone here is terrible. You're right. Just 90%. He laughed. You made a joke. I'm marking this day in my calendar. As they reached the exit, they both saw it. Trent's truck idling in the parking lot, 3 figures visible inside. Trent was watching them through the windshield. That's not ominous at all, Griffin said dryly. Want me to walk with you? I'll be fine. You sure? Because I have my black belt in sarcasm and I'm not afraid to use it. Despite the tension, Reese smiled. I'm sure. All right, but text me when you get home. I'm assuming we're exchanging numbers now since we're basically best friends. They traded phones and added each other's contacts. Griffin headed toward the student parking area where his beat-up Honda waited, and Reese began her walk home. Trent's truck didn't follow her this time, but she felt eyes tracking her progress until she left school property, and she knew this new development, her friendship with Griffin, hadn't gone unnoticed. Friday confirmed her suspicions. Griffin was at his locker before first period when Kyle and Brock approached him. Reese was down the hall and saw the whole thing. Hey, Mercer, Kyle said, too friendly. Heard you've been hanging out with Ghost Girl. Griffin didn't look up from organizing his books. If you mean Reese, yeah, we have similar taste in literature. That's cool, that's cool. Just wanted to give you some friendly advice. She's bad news. Lots of drama follows her around. Funny, from where I'm standing, the drama seems to be following you around. Griffin closed his locker and faced them. You and your friends are the ones making her life difficult, not the other way around. Brock stepped closer, using his size advantage. Watch your mouth, California. You don't know how things work here. I know enough to recognize basic bullying behavior when I see it. Griffin didn't back down, which surprised everyone watching. And I know enough to recognize cowardice. 3 of you harassing one girl who's done nothing wrong. Pretty pathetic. Kyle's face went red. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Trent Vaughan is so insecure about his own mediocrity that he needs to tear down someone who never challenged him. And you two are such pathetic sycophants that you'll do his dirty work for him. Griffin adjusted his glasses, his voice casual despite the tension. Did I miss anything? The hallway had gone quiet, students sensing confrontation. Reese's heart rate spiked. Griffin was brilliant and brave, but he'd just painted a target on his own back. You're making a mistake, Brock said quietly. Probably. I make lots of them, but at least I can look at myself in the mirror. Griffin picked up his backpack. We done here? I have AP lit. He walked away, leaving Kyle and Brock standing there, stunned. As he passed Reese, he caught her eye and winked. She wanted to warn him, to tell him he'd just made things exponentially worse for both of them. But part of her was also grateful. For the first time since arriving in Ohio, someone had stood up for her publicly. At lunch, they sat together in the library again. This time, though, the mood was different. You didn't have to do that, Reese said. Do what? Confront them. Defend me. Griffin shrugged. Yes, I did. Because if I didn't, I'd be just like everyone else, and I have higher standards for myself than that. They're going to come after you now. Let them try. I'm not scared of people whose entire personality is peaked in high school. Besides, I have secret weapons. Like what? My devastating wit, my charm, and... He pulled out his phone and showed her a voice recording app. I record everything now. Call it a survival mechanism from California. You'd be amazed what happens when bullies realize their behavior is being documented. Reese stared at the app. That's actually smart. I have my moments. His expression grew serious. Look, I know you're trying to handle this your own way, and I respect that. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Okay, whatever happens, you've got backup now. That simple statement, "you've got backup," nearly undid her. Reese blinked hard against unexpected tears. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. I'm probably going to make things worse before they get better. It's kind of my specialty. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon, social media exploded. Someone had created a new hashtag, Ghost Girl and Nerd. Photos of Reese and Griffin, together in the library, walking through hallways, talking at lockers. The captions mocked them both, calling them perfect for each other since nobody else wants them, speculating about a relationship, making cruel jokes. The fake Instagram account posted a poll, "Are Ghost Girl and the California Nerd dating?" By Friday evening, it had gotten over 400 votes. The weekend felt different from the previous ones. Instead of isolated misery, Reese spent Saturday texting back and forth with Griffin. They shared book recommendations, complained about homework, and avoided directly discussing the social media attacks, even though both were aware of them. Sunday afternoon, Griffin suggested meeting at Riverside's small downtown coffee shop. Reese hesitated. Being seen together outside of school would fuel more rumors, but eventually agreed. The coffee shop was called Been There, Done That, and it was exactly the kind of quirky local business you'd expect in a small Midwestern town. Reese arrived first, ordering a simple black coffee and sitting in a corner booth where she could see the entrance. Griffin showed up 10 minutes later, hair windswept, carrying a backpack that looked like it weighed 30 pounds. He slid into the seat across from her and immediately pulled out a book. "Okay, you have to read this," he said, pushing The Dispossessed across the table. "It's Le Guin, obviously, and it's about anarchism and capitalism and utopian societies, and it's going to blow your mind." "You're lending me a book?" "I'm lending you several books. I have a whole lending library situation going on." He pulled out 2 more, Parable of the Sower and The Fifth Season. "These are mandatory reading for existing in my friend's circle." "Is that what we are?" "Friends?" Griffin looked at her seriously. "Yeah, I think so, unless you don't want to be, in which case I'll return to my cave and commune with my books alone." "No, Reese touched the stack of books. "Friends is good." They spent 2 hours in that coffee shop, talking about everything and nothing. Griffin told her about California, about his parents' divorce and his mom's decision to move to Ohio for a job, about how he'd been bullied at his old school for being too smart, too weird, too different. "It got bad," he admitted. "Really bad. To the point where I didn't want to go to school anymore. My mom found me having a panic attack in the bathroom one morning, and that's when she decided we were leaving, fresh start and all that." "Did it help? The fresh start?" "Yes and no. I'm not being actively bullied here, well, until last week anyway, but I'm also not really happy. I'm just existing, waiting to graduate and get out." He looked at her. "What about you?" "What are you running from?" Reese considered how much to tell him. "My mum died. Cancer. I promised her I'd try to have a normal life, move forward, be regular." "How's that going?" "Terribly, as you've noticed." Griffin smiled sadly. "Normal is overrated anyway. Regular is boring. Why would anyone want to be those things?" "Because being different hurts," Reese said quietly. Yeah, it does." He reached across the table and briefly squeezed her hand. "But at least now you're not different alone." They walked back through downtown together as the sun set, talking about books and futures and all the places they wanted to go when they finally escaped Ohio. When they parted ways, Griffin heading to his mum's apartment, Reese to her aunt's, Reese felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Week 5 shattered that hope like glass. Monday morning the attacks escalated. Someone had edited photos of Reese and Griffin into romantic scenarios, badly photoshopped images of them kissing, holding hands, even one that implied something more explicit. The images spread through social media like wildfire. Reese saw them before she even got to school. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, people tagging her, commenting, sharing. Some were mocking, some were disgusted, some were openly cruel. At school, the whispers followed her everywhere. "Did you see the photos? They're definitely together." So desperate. No wonder nobody else wanted them. Griffin found her at her locker, his face tight with anger. "You saw." "Yeah. This is character assassination. It's targeted harassment. We could report it." "To who? The administration that's ignored everything else?" "The police, then. This is potentially revenge porn territory if they doctored the images enough. It won't help. It'll just make it worse." Griffin looked like he wanted to argue, but the bell rang. "Lunch. Library. We'll figure this out." But lunch brought disaster. Reese and Griffin were sitting in their usual library spot when Ashley Morrison appeared with her cheerleader friends. They surrounded the table, blocking exits. "We need you two to leave," Ashley announced. "The library is for studying, not for whatever weird thing you've got going on." "We are studying," Griffin said calmly, gesturing to his textbooks. "You know what I mean, this whole—" Ashley waved her hand dismissively. "Friendship or relationship or whatever. It's making everyone uncomfortable. You need to take it somewhere else." "The library is a public space," Reese said quietly. "Not anymore. We've decided you're not welcome here." "You decided?" Griffin's voice dripped with sarcasm. "I didn't realize the cheer squad had jurisdiction over library access." "That's fascinating. Tell me, did you have to pass a constitutional law exam, or did the tyranny just come naturally?" Ashley's face flushed. "Don't be a smart-ass." "I am smart and I am an ass. It's my defining characteristic. Now, if you'll excuse us—" One of Ashley's friends, the tall blonde from the bathroom incident, grabbed Griffin's textbook and threw it across the library. It hit a bookshelf with a loud bang, pages fluttering. "Oops," she said. Griffin stood up slowly. "You're going to regret that." "Oh yeah? What are you going to do, nerd?" "Document it." Griffin pulled out his phone and took a photo of all of them. "Say cheese. This is going in my harassment evidence folder." The blonde grabbed for his phone, but Griffin was quicker, pulling it back. The movement caused her to stumble forward, and suddenly Ashley was screaming, "He pushed Morgan! Everyone saw it! He assaulted her!" "That's a lie, and you know it," Reese said, standing now too. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, finally emerged from her office. "What's going on here?" "Griffin pushed Morgan," Ashley said immediately. "We came over to ask them to be quiet, and he got violent." "That's completely false," Griffin protested. "She grabbed for my phone and tripped herself." "I saw him push her," one of Ashley's other friends said. "It was aggressive." "So did I," Ashley confirmed. Mrs. Chen looked overwhelmed. "Everyone to the principal's office, now." The next 2 hours were a nightmare. Principal Stevens, a balding man in his 50s, who seemed perpetually exhausted, listened to both versions of events. Ashley and her friends stuck to their story. Griffin had been aggressive, had pushed Morgan, had threatened them. Griffin maintained his innocence, explained about the phone grab, offered to show his harassment documentation. "I don't think photos taken without consent are going to help your case," Principal Stevens said wearily. "But lying about assault is okay." Griffin's voice rose. "They're making this up." "Mr. Mercer, calm down. I'm trying to understand what happened." Reese spoke up. "They're targeting us. They've been targeting me for weeks, and now they're targeting Griffin because he's my friend. This is orchestrated harassment." Principal Stevens pinched the bridge of his nose. "Ms. Holloway, I've heard concerns about your situation. But making serious accusations against other students requires evidence." "I have evidence!" The social media accounts, the photos they've doctored, the social media is outside of school jurisdiction. If you're being cyberbullied, that's a matter for your parents and possibly law enforcement. So, you're not going to do anything, Griffin said flatly. I'm going to give everyone here detention for causing a disruption in the library. Beyond that, I strongly suggest you all learn to avoid each other. That's your solution. Griffin's voice was incredulous. They assault us and we all get detention. No one assaulted anyone, according to Mrs. Chen, who broke up what appeared to be a mutual altercation. Now, everyone back to class. Detention Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Ashley and her friends left smirking. Griffin and Reese walked out in stunned silence. That was a farce, Griffin said once they were in the hallway. An absolute farce. Welcome to my last 5 weeks. This is insane. How are they getting away with this? Because they're popular. Because Trent's dad donates to the school. Because nobody wants to admit there's a problem. Reese leaned against the lockers, exhausted. I tried to warn you. Yeah, well, I don't back down from fights, especially unfair ones. Griffin's jaw was set. This isn't over. But things got worse before they got better. Tuesday afternoon, Reese was called out of biology class to the counselor's office. Ms. Rodriguez, the school counselor, was a well-meaning woman who nevertheless looked at Reese with a mixture of pity and concern that made her skin crawl. Reese, I wanted to check in with you. I've been hearing things, and I'm concerned about your well-being. I'm fine. Are you? Because multiple staff members have expressed worry. You seem isolated. You've been involved in several incidents, and there are rumors. The rumors aren't true. Perhaps not. But where there's smoke, there's often fire. And I noticed you've become close with Griffin Mercer, who also has had some behavioral issues. Griffin hasn't done anything wrong. He was involved in an altercation yesterday, which wasn't his fault. Ashley and her friends attacked us. Ms. Rodriguez made a note. It seems you're developing a pattern of seeing yourself as a victim. Because I am a victim. The words burst out of Reese before she could stop them. I've been harassed, threatened, humiliated, and no one has done anything to help. And now you're sitting here suggesting it's somehow my fault? I'm not saying it's your fault, Reese. I'm trying to understand the situation and help you cope with it in healthy ways. Healthy ways? Like what? Just accepting it? Letting them win? I'm suggesting that sometimes, when we're going through difficult times, we can perceive threats that aren't really there. And your friendship with Griffin, two isolated students bonding over shared grievances, might be reinforcing negative thought patterns. Reese stood up. I'd like to go back to class. We're not finished. Yes, we are. Unless you're going to actually help me, actually investigate what's happening, actually hold people accountable, then we're done talking. She walked out, ignoring Ms. Rodriguez's protests. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and tried to steady her breathing. Even the adults were gaslighting her now, suggesting she was imagining things, that her perceptions were wrong. That afternoon, she found Griffin in the parking lot after school. They're trying to separate us, she told him. The counselor basically said our friendship is unhealthy. Of course they are. Classic abuser tactics. Isolate the victim, make them doubt themselves. Griffin was pacing, agitated. This is exactly what happened at my old school before I left. They make you think you're crazy, that you're the problem. Maybe I am the problem. Don't do that. Don't let them get in your head. He stopped pacing, looked at her directly. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I. We're just easy targets because we don't fit their social structure. I'm tired, Griffin. I know. Me too. But we can't give up. That's what they want. Reese wasn't sure she agreed, but she didn't have the energy to argue. Wednesday brought the cafeteria incident that changed everything. Reese had been avoiding the cafeteria, but she'd forgotten her lunch that morning, and the library didn't allow outside food. She had no choice but to brave the gauntlet. She grabbed a tray, pizza again, always pizza, and was scanning for the safest place to sit when she saw Griffin near the front, waving her over to an empty table. She started toward him, navigating between crowded tables, when suddenly Kyle was there, stepping directly into her path. She tried to sidestep, but his foot shot out. Reese stumbled, her tray tilting dangerously. She managed to keep hold of it barely, but in recovering her balance, she bumped into someone behind her. That person's drink, a large soda, went flying, splashing across the floor. And that person was Trent. What the hell? Trent stood up, his shirt stained with cola. The cafeteria went quiet. It was an accident, Reese said immediately. Kyle tripped me. I didn't trip anyone, Kyle said innocently. She's clumsy. You stuck your foot out. Did not. Trent took a step toward Reese. You know what? I've tried to be patient with you. I've tried to be nice, but you just keep causing problems. I didn't. Yes, you did. You spilled my drink. You called me a liar and a bully in front of everyone. You turned Griffin against me. I didn't turn anyone against anyone. You're a toxic person, Trent continued, his voice carrying across the cafeteria. Everyone was watching now, phones out, recording. You spread rumors, you play victim, and you ruin things for everyone around you. Griffin was cool before you got here. Now he's turned into some wannabe hero defending someone who doesn't deserve it. Leave Griffin out of this, Reese said, her voice hardening. Why? You dragged him into it. You made him a target, too. That's on you. Griffin appeared then, walking up beside Reese. I'm right here, Vaughn. And I made my own choices. Nobody dragged me into anything. Trent's attention shifted to Griffin. You sure about that? Because from where I'm standing, you threw away your chance to be normal here just to defend someone everyone knows is a freak. Define normal, Griffin shot back. Because if normal means being like you, shallow, cruel, insecure, then I'm good with being abnormal. The cafeteria erupted in whispers and gasps. Trent's face went dark red. You want to say that again? Sure, you're shallow. Your personality has less depth than a puddle. You're cruel. You hurt people for entertainment because you have nothing else interesting about you. And you're deeply insecure, which is why you need constant validation from... Trent shoved Griffin hard. Griffin stumbled back into a table. Stop! Reese shouted. Brock grabbed Griffin's arms from behind, pinning them. You talk too much, California. Kyle moved toward Reese. And you need to learn your place. It happened fast then. Kyle reached for Reese's lunch tray, clearly intending to dump it on her head. Reese dropped the tray herself, better to control where it landed, and stepped back. But Kyle kept coming, his hand grabbing her wrist, and Reese's body responded on pure instinct. She rotated her wrist in a small circle, a basic jiu-jitsu grip break, and Kyle's hand came away. She stepped off the center line as he lunged forward, his momentum carrying him past her. He tried to grab her again, and this time Reese performed a textbook arm drag, redirecting his energy and putting him off balance. Kyle stumbled, caught himself, and stared at her. What the... The cafeteria had gone absolutely silent. Everyone had seen that exchange, seen Reese move with a speed and precision that didn't match her quiet girl image. Did you just... Trent started. But then Brock, still holding Griffin, said, She knows how to fight. Griffin, taking advantage of everyone's distraction, stomped hard on Brock's instep. Brock yelped and released him. Griffin immediately moved to stand beside Reese. Yeah, Griffin said, breathing hard. She does. And I'm betting she's a lot better at it than you three combined. So maybe you should back off before you embarrass yourselves. Trent's eyes narrowed, studying Reese with new attention. You've been holding back. I've been trying to avoid this, Reese said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Trying to avoid what? Showing everyone you're not actually helpless. Trying to avoid fighting. There's a difference, really, because it looks like you've been playing us this whole time, acting weak, acting scared, when you could have fought back any time you wanted." Trent's expression shifted from anger to something more calculating. "You made me look like a bully." "You are a bully," Griffin pointed out. "Shut up!" Trent's attention stayed on Reese. "You know what? I want to see what you can really do. Friday, after school, parking lot, just you and me, no more hiding behind your little boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend," Reese said automatically. "Then you won't mind proving yourself without him." "Friday. Be there, or everyone will know you're a coward." Mr. Rodriguez finally showed up, pushing through the crowd. "What's going on here?" "Why is there food everywhere?" "Nothing," Trent said smoothly. "Just an accident. Right, Reese?" Reese looked at him, at Brock and Kyle, at Griffin beside her, at the 200 students watching with their phones out. She thought about her promise to her mother, about staying peaceful, about having a normal life. But nothing about this was normal, and peace clearly wasn't working. "Friday," she found herself saying. "I'll be there." Trent smiled, triumphant. "Good." Looking forward to it. He walked away, his friends following, the crowd parting for them. The cafeteria slowly returned to its normal chaos, but Reese could feel the shift. Everyone was looking at her differently now. Griffin touched her arm. "Reese, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. It's the only way this ends." "What if you get hurt?" Reese looked at him, and for the first time since arriving in Ohio, she allowed a small smile. "I won't." That night, lying on her pull-out couch, Reese thought about Friday. She thought about her mother's face in the hospital, about the promise she'd made, about the cost of keeping it. She thought about Griffin's friendship, about the kids in the sci-fi club, about having someone who believed in her. She thought about 6 years of training that she'd tried to bury, about muscle memory that never forgot, about skills that were still there, waiting, patient. And she thought about a choice: continue to endure abuse in the name of peace, or stand up for herself even if it meant breaking a promise. Her mother had wanted her to have a normal life, but maybe a normal life wasn't possible for someone like her. Maybe she was always going to be different, always going to stand out, always going to face conflict. The question was whether she'd face it as a victim or as someone who refused to be victimized. Reese picked up her phone and opened a message to Griffin. "I need to tell you something about my past." His response came quickly. "I'm listening." Over the next hour, she typed out the whole story. About her father, about her mother's fear, about the training she'd sought out, about the competitions she'd won, about the promise she'd made, and why she'd kept it even when it hurt. Griffin's response was simple and perfect. "Whatever you decide to do Friday, I've got your back." Reese closed her phone and stared at the ceiling. Her mother had been afraid she'd end up like her father, consumed by violence, destroyed by fighting. But maybe her mother had been wrong. Maybe fighting and violence weren't the same thing. Maybe you could be strong without being cruel, could defend yourself without becoming an aggressor. Maybe you could break a promise for the right reasons and still honor the spirit of it. Thursday morning, word had spread. Everyone knew about Friday's confrontation. The hallways buzzed with speculation and excitement. Would Reese actually show up? Was Trent going to destroy her? Had anyone seen her move in the cafeteria? Reese walked through it all with her head up, feeling different somehow. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't trying to be invisible. She was just present, solid, real. Ashley and her friends glared at her in the hallways but kept their distance. Kyle and Brock followed her with their eyes but didn't approach. Even Trent seemed to be giving her space, confident that Friday would put everything back in its proper order. During calculus, Griffin passed her a note. "You sure about this?" She wrote back, "No, but I'm doing it anyway." His response, "That's the definition of courage." At lunch, they sat in the library one last time before everything changed. Other students kept walking past, stealing glances, whispering. Reese and Griffin ignored them, talking about books and possibilities and futures. "When this is over," Griffin said, "win or lose, at least you won't be invisible anymore. I don't want to be famous for fighting. Then be famous for not backing down, for standing up when everyone expected you to fold, for showing that quiet doesn't mean weak." He leaned forward. "You're going to teach them something tomorrow, about assumptions and underestimation and the difference between peaceful and helpless. What if I go too far? What if I hurt him badly? Then you hurt him. He's been hurting you for weeks. That's called consequences." Griffin's voice softened. "But I don't think you will. Because that's not who you are. You're not your father, Reese. You're someone who fights when necessary, but doesn't need to dominate. That's different." After school, Reese went home and changed into workout clothes. She hadn't trained seriously in 6 months, but her body remembered. She went for a run, pushed herself hard, felt the familiar burn of exertion. Then she went through forms in her small living room, basic movements, shadow boxing, footwork drills. Her aunt came home during this and watched from the doorway. "I thought you'd stopped fighting." "I did. For a while." "What changed?" Reese considered the question. "Someone reminded me that there's a difference between choosing peace and having peace forced on you, and that sometimes fighting is the only way to establish real peace." Patricia studied her niece, seeing something in her that had been hidden for months. "Your mother was afraid you'd become like your father. But I knew your father, Reese. And his problem wasn't that he could fight. His problem was that he couldn't stop. He let it consume him, define him, destroy him. I won't let that happen." "No," Patricia said slowly. "I don't think you will. You're too much like your mother for that. She was gentle, but she was also strong. Really strong. Stronger than your father ever was." She paused. "Do what you need to do tomorrow. Just come home safe." "I will." That night, Reese slept better than she had in weeks. No anxiety, no dread, just calm acceptance of what was coming. Friday arrived with clear skies and cool autumn air. The school day passed in a blur of anticipation. Students whispered in every class, excitement building. Teachers seemed oblivious, or perhaps they simply didn't care enough to intervene. By lunch, the entire school knew where and when. Parking lot 3:30, right after final bell. Griffin sat with Reese in the library one last time. "This is it. This is it. You ready?" Reese thought about her father, about her mother, about promises kept and broken and reinterpreted. She thought about 6 years of training, about muscle memory and technique and control. She thought about endurance and dignity and knowing when to finally stand up. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." The final bell rang at 3:20. By 3:25, the parking lot was filling with students. Word had spread beyond Westridge. Kids from other schools were showing up, drawn by social media posts and texts. By 3:30, at least 300 people had gathered in a large circle, phones out, recording. Trent stood in the center, flanked by Brock and Kyle. He'd taken off his Letterman jacket, rolled up his sleeves. He looked confident, ready, certain of victory. Reese walked through the crowd alone. Griffin had wanted to come with her, but she'd asked him to stay back. This needed to be just her. She entered the circle and stopped about 10 feet from Trent. She was wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked small next to him, unimposing, almost fragile. "You actually showed up," Trent said, sounding surprised. "I said I would. Last chance to back out. Admit you've been causing problems, apologize, and this ends here." "No." Trent's jaw tightened. "Your funeral. When this is over, everyone's going to see who you really are. A fake who's been playing victim while... Are we fighting or talking? Reese interrupted. Because if we're just talking, I have homework. Someone in the crowd laughed. Trent's face flushed. We're fighting. He shifted his weight, raised his fists in a rough approximation of a boxer's stance. Come on then, show everyone what you can really do, ghost girl. Reese didn't move into a fighting stance. She just stood there, balanced, centered, hands at her sides. You sure you want to do this? What, scared now? No, just giving you one last chance to walk away. I'm not the one who needs to walk away. Trent took a step forward. The crowd pressed closer, phones held high, recording from every angle. In the distance, Reese could see Griffin at the edge of the circle, his face worried but trusting. Near him, surprisingly, were the kids from Sci-Fi Club standing together. Trent charged. He came in fast, telegraphing a right hook from a mile away. Reese stepped off the center line, letting his fist pass harmlessly through the space where she'd been standing. She didn't counter, didn't attack, just evaded. Trent recovered through a combination, jab, cross, sloppy overhand right. Reese slipped each punch with minimal movement, her footwork economical and precise. The crowd gasped. These weren't lucky dodges, this was skill. Stand still, Trent demanded, frustration creeping into his voice. Why would I do that? He came in again, trying to use his size and strength to overwhelm her. He grabbed for her shirt, got a handful of fabric. Reese performed a basic grip break, stepped to the outside of his grip, and swept his front leg. Trent went down hard, hitting the pavement on his side. The crowd erupted. Trent scrambled to his feet, embarrassed and angry. You're dead. I'm really not. Reese's voice was calm, almost gentle. You can stop this anytime. Shut up! He charged again, this time trying to tackle her, a wrestler's shot, but poorly executed. Reese sprawled instinctively, her hips driving back, stuffing the takedown. She easily moved to his back, could have applied a rear naked choke or any number of submissions, but instead she just pushed him forward and stepped away. Trent caught himself before he face-planted. He turned, breathing hard, realizing he was completely outmatched. Brock! Kyle! His friends hesitated. Help me! Kyle stepped into the circle first, approaching cautiously. He threw a tentative punch. Reese caught his wrist, applied a simple wrist lock, and guided him gently to the ground. He tapped immediately, recognizing the submission. She released him, and he scrambled backward out of the circle. Brock was bigger, stronger, but just as unskilled. He tried to grab Reese in a bear hug. She ducked under his arms, moved to his back, and applied a body lock that put him off balance. A simple trip sent him to the pavement. She stepped away before he could grab her legs. Now it was just Trent again, facing her alone. He was breathing hard, sweating, and the reality of the situation was clearly sinking in. The crowd was silent now, watching with stunned attention. You see what I could have done any time, Reese said quietly. In the hallway, in the cafeteria, in the parking lot. Any of those times when you pushed me, grabbed me, humiliated me, I could have ended it. I chose not to. Then why now? Trent's voice was smaller, less certain, because I realized that sometimes choosing peace means making it impossible for someone to keep hurting you, and the only way to do that with you was to show you what would happen if you kept pushing. Trent looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording his defeat, at Kyle and Brock sitting on the pavement nursing their pride. Everyone's going to see this. Yes, they're going to see that you picked a fight with someone half your size and lost. They're going to see that all your confidence and cruelty were built on the assumption that I wouldn't fight back. And they're going to wonder what kind of person needs to hurt others to feel powerful. She took a step closer. Trent flinched. But they're also going to see me not hurt you when I easily could. They're going to see me use exactly as much force as necessary and no more. They're going to see restraint and control. She paused. This ends now. No more harassment. No more targeting me or Griffin or anyone else. If you have a problem with someone, use your words like an adult. Understand? Trent nodded slowly, the fight completely gone from him. I didn't hear you. I understand, he said quietly. Good. Reese turned and started to walk away. Wait. She stopped, looked back. Trent was standing there in the center of the circle, shoulders slumped, looking younger and more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Why didn't you just fight back from the beginning? Why let it go on so long? Reese considered the question. Because I promised my mother I'd try to be peaceful. And I wanted to honor that promise. But I realized, too late maybe, that sometimes keeping a promise to someone who's gone means understanding what they really wanted for you. My mom didn't want me to be helpless. She wanted me to be safe. She wanted me to have choices. Today I chose to be safe by showing you I'm not someone you can victimize. I never wanted to. Trent started, then stopped. No, that's a lie. I did want to make you feel small. I don't know why. You were new and quiet and different, and it felt like you were judging me or something. I wasn't. I know that now. He looked at the ground. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it. The crowd was absolutely silent, holding its collective breath. This was the moment, the climax, the resolution, the lesson. Reese walked back to where Trent stood and extended her hand. After a moment's hesitation, he took it. She helped him up, then released his hand and stepped back. Apology accepted, she said simply. Just don't do it again. To anyone. She walked out of the circle, through the crowd that parted silently before her, toward where Griffin waited with a huge grin on his face. That, Griffin said as she reached him, was the most badass thing I've ever witnessed. It's over, Reese said, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. Behind her, the crowd was dispersing, already sharing videos, already talking, already processing what they'd seen. Ahead of her was Griffin and the sci-fi club kids, and maybe, finally, the possibility of peace. Not the peace of surrender, but the peace that comes from standing your ground. Monday morning felt different. Reese walked through the hallways of Westridge High with her head up, and students moved aside, not out of contempt, but out of respect. Some nodded, some offered quiet haze, some looked guilty. By lunchtime, the videos from Friday had gone viral, not just school-wide, but regionally. Bullied student fights back with incredible martial arts skills, read one tweet with thousands of likes. This is how you handle a bully, said another. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, though some criticized her for using violence. Griffin found her at her locker. You're famous. I don't want to be famous. No late, but hey, look on the bright side. The fame is for standing up for yourself, not for being victimized. That's an improvement. They walked to the cafeteria together. For the first time in weeks, Reese bought lunch and sat at a regular table. Griffin sat across from her, and within minutes, several other students joined them, including Marcus from Sci-Fi Club, and surprisingly Jenna, the girl who'd defended her in the hallway that first week. That was really brave what you did, Jenna said. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. It's okay. It's not really. But I'm glad you're okay. Across the cafeteria, Trent sat with Brock and Kyle at their usual table, but the energy was different. They sat quietly, not holding court, not dominating the space. Other students gave them a wide berth, not out of admiration, but out of something closer to wariness or disapproval. Ashley and her cheerleader friends whispered among themselves, but didn't approach. The fake Instagram account had been taken down over the weekend, reported by enough people that the platform finally acted. After school, Principal Stevens called Reese and Trent into his office separately. First Trent, who emerged 20 minutes later looking chastened, then Reese. I've reviewed the video evidence from Friday, Principal Stevens said, his expression unreadable. Multiple students forwarded recordings. While I can't condone fighting on school property, it appears you were acting in self-defense against multiple aggressors. Yes, sir. It also appears there's been an ongoing pattern of harassment that staff failed to adequately address. He removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. For that, I apologize. We should have intervened sooner. Reese said nothing, waiting. Mr. Vaughan and his associates will be suspended for 3 days. They'll also be required to attend counseling sessions and complete a program on bullying and conflict resolution. As for you, he put his glasses back on, I'm not going to punish you for defending yourself, but I strongly encourage you to use school resources if you face any further issues. Will those resources actually help this time? Principal Stevens had the grace to look ashamed. Yes, I've spoken with the staff about being more proactive. This situation should never have escalated as far as it did. It was a non-answer dressed up as accountability, but Reese accepted it. She wasn't going to change the whole system. She'd just changed her own situation. That evening, Aunt Patricia made a special dinner, chicken parmesan, Reese's favorite. They ate together, really together, without the TV on or phones out. I saw the videos, Patricia said carefully. Everyone's been sharing them at the hospital. Oh, you looked not like you. Well, not like the you I've known since you moved here. You looked like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I did know what I was doing. That was the problem. No, honey. That was the solution. Patricia reached across the table, took her hand. Your mother asked you to give up fighting because she was scared. She saw what it did to your father and couldn't imagine it being different for you. But you're not him. What you did on Friday, that wasn't about dominance or ego or violence. That was about dignity. Mom would have been disappointed. Maybe. Or maybe she would have understood that sometimes promises need to be reinterpreted as circumstances change. She wanted you to be safe and happy. Enduring abuse wasn't making you either of those things. Reese blinked back unexpected tears. I miss her. I know. I miss her too. Patricia squeezed her hand. But I think she'd be proud of the person you're becoming. Someone who tried peace first, who exhausted every peaceful option, and who only fought when absolutely necessary. That's wisdom, Reese. That's maturity. They finished dinner in companionable silence, and Reese felt something shift inside her, not guilt exactly released, but recontextualized. She'd honored the spirit of her mother's request, even if not the letter. She'd tried peace. She'd only fought when it became unavoidable, and she'd done it with restraint and control, never letting violence become who she was. The rest of week 5 passed quietly. Trent served his suspension. The social media attention gradually died down. School began to feel almost normal, or at least a new kind of normal where Reese was known and respected rather than invisible and victimized. Griffin became her constant companion, and their friendship attracted others, kids who'd been too scared to reach out before, outsiders who recognized kindred spirits. The sci-fi club doubled in size. Reese found herself at the center of a growing friend group, people who valued authenticity and kindness over popularity and cruelty. She still kept to herself somewhat, still preferred books to parties, still valued quiet over noise. But she was no longer invisible. She was just herself. Friday afternoon, 1 week after the confrontation, Reese was at her locker when Trent approached. Griffin immediately tensed beside her, but Reese touched his arm. It's okay. Trent stopped a respectful distance away. Can I talk to you? Just for a minute. Reese closed her locker, turned to face him. Sure. I've been doing that counseling thing. Talking to someone about why I did what I did. Trent looked uncomfortable but determined. Turns out I've got some issues. With my dad, with expectations, with needing to control everything because I don't actually control anything at home. That's not an excuse, Reese said quietly. I know, and I'm not using it as one. I'm just explaining. My dad's this big successful guy, and he expects me to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect game stats, perfect social life. And when you showed up and just didn't care about any of that, didn't care about impressing anyone, it made me realize how much energy I waste trying to be what everyone expects, and I hated you for that. That's your problem, not mine. Yeah, I know that now. I'm working on it, on not projecting my stuff onto other people. He paused. I also wanted to say I've been talking to some of the other people I've been shitty to over the years, making amends, I guess. It's part of the program. That's good. Anyway, I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better, to not be who I was. Trent met her eyes. You could have really hurt me last week. Like, seriously hurt me. Everyone knows that now. But you didn't, and I don't understand why. Reese considered the question. Because hurting you wouldn't have solved anything. It would have just made me like you, someone who uses strength to dominate weaker people. I didn't want that. I just wanted you to stop. Well, I have. Stopped, I mean. And I'll keep stopping. No more bullying, no more targeting people, no more being that guy. He started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, you're probably the bravest person I've ever met, not because you can fight, though you really can, but because you tried everything else first. That's real strength. He walked away before Reese could respond. Griffin let out a low whistle. Character development, he said. Did not see that coming. People can change, Reese said, if they want to. You think he really will? I don't know, but I hope so. She looked at Griffin. Come on. Sci-Fi Club meeting. We're discussing The Handmaid's Tale today. That's not sci-fi. It's speculative fiction which counts. Stop being a genre snob. They walked down the hallway together, arguing good-naturedly about literary categorization. Just two friends navigating a normal afternoon at school. Behind them, Westridge High continued its daily rhythms, but something had fundamentally shifted. The ghost girl had become solid. The silent victim had found her voice. And in the process, she'd taught everyone watching a lesson about real strength, the kind that includes restraint, mercy, and the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary and when it isn't. Week 6 began with Reese feeling almost cautiously optimistic. The harassment had stopped. She had friends. School felt manageable. But she remained vigilant, knowing that change could be temporary, that people could backslide. Monday morning proved her caution was warranted, but in an unexpected way. Reese was walking to her locker when she saw a freshman girl being cornered by 3 older students, not Trent's group, different kids. They were blocking her against the wall, laughing at something, while the girl looked terrified. Reese's first instinct was to keep walking, to not get involved, but she thought about all those people who'd walked past her suffering, and she couldn't do it. She approached the group. Hey, leave her alone. The 3 students, 2 guys and a girl Reese didn't recognize, turned to look at her. One of the guys, a tall kid with a basketball jersey, sneered. Mind your business, ghost girl. Her name is Reese, came Griffin's voice behind her. He'd apparently followed her. And this is her business, because bullying anyone is everyone's business. The tall kid looked between them, clearly calculating odds. Behind Reese and Griffin, other students had stopped, watching. The atmosphere had changed. People weren't just spectators anymore. They were potential interveners. Whatever, the tall kid said. She's not worth it anyway. He walked away, his friends following. The freshman girl looked up at Reese with huge, grateful eyes. Thank you. They've been bothering me all week. Come with me, Reese said. We're going to report this right now, and it's going to get handled. They went to Principal Stevens's office together, and this time Perhaps because Reese was involved, perhaps because the administration was genuinely trying to do better, action was taken immediately. The 3 students were called in, statements were taken, parents were contacted. By lunchtime, Reese found herself in an unexpected role: protector. 2 other students approached her separately, asking for advice about bullying situations they were facing. She listened, offered support, and helped them navigate reporting procedures. "You're becoming like the school's unofficial anti-bullying advocate," Griffin observed. "How does that feel?" "Weird. I didn't want to be anyone's role model." "Too bad. You are one now. Own it." Tuesday brought a surprise. Ashley Morrison approached Reese in the hallway with an expression that almost looked like shame. "Can we talk?" Ashley asked. Reese glanced at Griffin, who shrugged. They followed Ashley to an empty classroom. "I wanted to apologize," Ashley said without preamble, "for everything. The bathroom thing, the library incident, all the mean girl bullshit. I was following Trent's lead because I don't know. I thought being on his side meant something, made me important. Why tell me this now? Because I watched what happened last week and I realized something. You could have made me look as stupid as you made him look. You could have called me out publicly, exposed everything I did, made sure everyone knew I was complicit. But you didn't. You just moved on." Ashley looked uncomfortable. "That made me think about who I want to be. And it's not someone who hurts people for social points." Reese studied her, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. But Ashley just looked tired and a little lost. "Okay," Reese said finally. "Apology accepted. Just don't do it again. I won't. And if I see it happening to someone else, I'll speak up." It wasn't a grand redemption arc or a tearful reconciliation. It was just 2 people acknowledging mistakes and choosing to do better. Sometimes that was enough. Wednesday afternoon, the counselor Ms. Rodriguez called Reese in again. This time, the meeting was different. "I owe you an apology," Ms. Rodriguez said immediately. "I dismissed your concerns, suggested you were overreacting, and failed to recognize a serious pattern of harassment. That was unprofessional and harmful, and I'm sorry." Reese hadn't expected this. "Okay. I've been working with Principal Stevens and the rest of the staff to implement better reporting procedures and intervention protocols. We're also bringing in outside training on recognizing and addressing bullying behavior." Ms. Rodriguez looked directly at Reese. "What happened to you should never have been allowed to escalate as far as it did. We failed you, and we're committed to doing better." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know that your experience is leading to actual change. And because I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to participate in a student advisory committee on school climate and safety." Reese considered. Part of her wanted nothing to do with school administration after how they'd let her down. But another part, the part that had intervened with that freshman girl, wanted to help ensure no one else went through what she had. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all I ask." Thursday brought another unexpected development. Colleges started reaching out. Apparently the viral videos had caught the attention of martial arts programs and athletic departments across the region. Reese received emails from 3 schools asking about her competition background, her training history, her interest in joining their teams. She showed the emails to her aunt that evening. "What do you want to do?" Patricia asked. "I don't know. I stopped competing because Mom asked me to. But these are full scholarships. We can't afford college otherwise. Your mother wanted you to be safe and happy. She also wanted you to have opportunities. If martial arts can give you those opportunities, if you can pursue it in a healthy way that doesn't consume you, maybe that's honoring her memory too." Reese thought about it, about the difference between fighting for dominance and competing in a structured, rule-based environment, about using her skills positively rather than hiding them shamefully. "I need to think about it," she said. Friday afternoon, Reese was approached by a local news reporter who wanted to do a story on the student who stood up to bullying. Reese politely declined. She didn't want to be famous, didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to be herself. Griffin supported the decision. "You've already made your impact. You don't owe anyone a performance." The weekend was quiet. Reese trained Saturday morning, really trained for the first time in months, pushing herself through drills and techniques. It felt good to move that way again, to inhabit her body fully, to acknowledge what she was capable of. Saturday afternoon, she and Griffin went to the coffee shop and spent hours talking about everything and nothing. He told her more about California, about his plans to study journalism, about wanting to write stories that mattered. She told him about her uncertainty, her guilt over breaking promises, her hope that maybe she could find a way forward. "You know what I think," Griffin said. "I think you've already found the way forward. You're just scared to admit it." "What do you mean?" "You're someone who uses strength to protect, not to dominate. That's rare and valuable. Whether you compete or teach or just know you have those skills, that's good. The problem was never the fighting. The problem was your mom's trauma around it, and you can honor her fear without letting it control your life." Reese sat with that wisdom, turning it over in her mind. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been this smart. You're just now recognizing it." Sunday evening, Reese sat down and wrote a letter to her mother, not to send anywhere, just to process her thoughts. She wrote about the last few months, about the bullying and the choice she'd made, about breaking the promise and why. She wrote about feeling guilty but also feeling right, about understanding that sometimes keeping someone's memory alive means interpreting their wishes through the lens of current circumstances. She wrote, "I think what you really wanted was for me to not let fighting define me the way it defined Dad, and I won't. I'll let it be part of me, a skill I have, a strength I can use when necessary, but not the only thing I am. I'll be someone who reads books and makes friends and tries to make the world a little better. Someone who fights when necessary but chooses peace when possible. I hope that's enough. I hope that would make you proud." She folded the letter and tucked it into the photo album where she kept her favorite pictures of her mother. Then she went to bed, feeling lighter than she had in months. Week 7 began with a subtle but significant shift. People started coming to Reese for help. Monday, a sophomore boy asked her advice about dealing with an aggressive teammate. Tuesday, a girl from her English class asked if she'd teach her some self-defense basics. Wednesday, the freshman from the previous week brought a friend who was also being harassed. "You're building a whole network of people who aren't going to tolerate bullying anymore," Griffin observed. "It's like a social movement." "It's not a movement. It's just people helping people. Movements start with people helping people." Thursday afternoon, something happened that brought everything full circle. Reese was in the library after school, working on homework, when Trent walked in. He looked around, spotted her, and approached hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Reese gestured to the empty chair. Trent sat, looking uncomfortable. "How did you learn to fight like that?" "Training. 6 years of jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai." "Why'd you start?" Reese considered how much to share. "My dad was a fighter. Professional. My mom hated it, thought it destroyed him. But I was curious about that part of my heritage, started training when I was 12, found out I was good at it. And then you stopped." "My mom got sick, made me promise to give it up. She thought if I kept fighting, I'd end up like my dad, consumed by it, defined by it." Reese closed her textbook. "So I stopped. Moved here, tried to have a normal life, buried that whole part of myself. Until I pushed you too far." "Yeah." Trent was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About how you could have destroyed me, not just physically, but socially, emotionally. You had every reason to humiliate me as badly as possible, but you didn't. You used exactly as much force as necessary and stopped. Because that's what control looks like. I didn't have control. I let my insecurities control me, let my fear of not being good enough drive me to hurt people so I could feel powerful. Trent met her eyes. You showed me what real power is. It's restraint. It's choosing not to hurt someone when you easily could. What are you going to do with that lesson? I don't know yet, but I'm figuring it out. He stood to leave, then paused. Thank you. For not destroying me when you could have. For giving me a chance to be better. After he left, Griffin appeared from the stacks where he'd apparently been studying. Did that really just happen? Did Trent Vaughan actually thank you? Apparently. I'm writing this down. For posterity, and because nobody will believe me otherwise. Friday brought the moment Reese had been putting off. She responded to one of the college emails. The school was in Pennsylvania, had a strong martial arts program with an emphasis on technical skill and sportsmanship, and offered a full scholarship including room and board. I'm going to visit, she told her aunt that evening, see if it feels right. And if it does, then maybe I'll compete again. Not like Dad, not obsessively, not violently, but as an athlete. Someone who respects the art, respects opponents, and uses skill to succeed rather than to dominate. Patricia pulled her into a hug. That sounds perfect. That weekend, Reese went to the school in Pennsylvania. The campus was beautiful, the martial arts facilities were incredible, and the coach emphasized philosophy as much as technique. They talked about respect, discipline, control, and using martial arts as a tool for personal development rather than aggression. We build complete human beings here, the coach said. Athletes who are also scholars, competitors who are also citizens. If you join our program, you won't just learn to fight better. You'll learn to be better. Reese committed on the spot. When she returned to Westridge Monday morning, she felt different. She had a future now, a direction. She was no longer the ghost girl trying to disappear. She was someone with plans and possibilities and purpose. Griffin was waiting at her locker. So, how was it? I'm going. Full scholarship. I start training with them this summer. Griffin's grin was huge. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. What about you? Where are you applying? Berkeley, Northwestern Columbia, anywhere that's far from Ohio and has a good journalism program. He leaned against the lockers. We're both getting out. That's what matters. That week passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost foreign. Classes, lunch with friends, sci-fi club meetings, homework, training sessions at a local gym. Reese was busier than she'd ever been, but in a good way. She was building a life rather than just surviving one. Thursday afternoon, she taught an informal self-defense class in the gymnasium after school. About 20 students showed up, mostly girls, but some guys too. Reese taught them basic awareness, simple strikes, and how to break common grabs. The goal isn't to win a fight, she explained. It's to create an opportunity to get away safely. Violence should always be a last resort, but you should know you have options if it becomes necessary. One of the participants was the freshman girl from weeks ago. After the class, she approached Reese. I feel less scared now, like I could actually do something if I needed to. That's the point, Reese said. Confidence is the best defense. When you carry yourself like someone who won't be victimized, you're less likely to become a target. Friday brought an unexpected visitor. Mr. Vaughan, Trent's father, appeared in the school parking lot as Reese was walking home. He was tall, imposing, driving an expensive Mercedes. Reese's guard immediately went up. Reese Holloway? He asked, approaching her. Yes. I'm Richard Vaughan, Trent's father. I wanted to talk to you about what happened with my son. Reese waited, prepared for accusations or threats. Instead, Mr. Vaughan said, I wanted to thank you. Excuse me. Trent's been different since that incident. More thoughtful, more self-aware. Less of an entitled jackass, to be frank. He looked uncomfortable. I put a lot of pressure on him over the years. Expected him to be perfect, to dominate, to win at everything. I didn't realize I was creating a bully. What changed? Seeing him get beaten by someone half his size made me realize he wasn't actually strong. He was just big. There's a difference. Mr. Vaughan shifted his weight. You showed real strength that day, not just physical strength, but moral strength. You could have hurt him badly. You chose not to. That's the kind of character I should have been teaching him. He's working on it, Reese said carefully. I know. We're working on it together. Family therapy, coaching from someone who understands adolescent development, the whole thing. Mr. Vaughan extended his hand. Thank you for teaching my son a lesson I failed to teach him myself. They shook hands, and he left. Reese stood in the parking lot slightly dazed. Griffin appeared beside her. Are you collecting father figures now? Is that the new thing? That was bizarre. That was accountability. Rare, but occasionally it happens. He offered his arm. Come on, let's get coffee. You can process your weird life over caffeine. Had been there, done that, they sat in their usual corner booth and debriefed the week. Griffin shared gossip from the school newspaper staff. Reese talked about her college plans, and they both marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. You know what's wild? Griffin said. 7 weeks ago, you were being harassed daily. Nobody would talk to you. You were miserable. Now you're helping other people, planning your future, and the guy who tormented you is in therapy because of you. Not because of me, because he chose to change. Still, you were the catalyst. You stood up when you'd tried everything else, showed incredible skill while maintaining incredible restraint, and somehow managed to inspire change without becoming the villain. Griffin raised his coffee cup. You're basically a superhero. I'm really not. Agree to disagree. They talked until the coffee shop closed, then walked through downtown Riverside as evening fell. The air was crisp, autumn settling in fully now, and Reese felt a contentment she'd never expected to find in this small Ohio town. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For being the first person to talk to me. For standing up for me. For being my friend when nobody else would. Reese looked at him. You changed everything. We changed everything, Griffin corrected. You think I would have had the guts to confront Brock and Kyle without your example? You think I would have kept pushing back without knowing you were doing the same thing? We helped each other. Still, thank you. You're welcome. Now stop being sentimental. It's freaking me out. They laughed and walked home through streets that no longer felt hostile but simply familiar, two friends navigating a world they'd helped make slightly better. The next 2 weeks passed in relative calm. Trent kept to himself mostly, but was noticeably different, less aggressive, less performative, more genuine in his interactions. His friends Brock and Kyle seemed lost without his leadership, drifting toward other social groups. Ashley Morrison joined the school's peer mediation program and started actively working against bullying behavior. Reese continued teaching informal self-defense classes, which grew in popularity. She helped several more students report harassment and watched as the administration actually followed through with consequences. The school climate shifted incrementally but noticeably. People were less willing to tolerate cruelty, more likely to intervene, more conscious of their choices. Griffin's newspaper ran a feature on bullying and bystander responsibility, featuring anonymous interviews with students who'd witnessed harassment and done nothing. The article sparked conversations throughout the school about courage, complicity, and community responsibility. In early November, Reese was called to Principal Stevens's office, but this time for something positive. The Student Advisory Committee on School Climate had met, reviewed data on bullying incidents, which had dropped significantly, and wanted to recognize students who'd contributed to the change. Reese was one of them, along with Griffin, Ashley, and several others. "We'd like to honor you at the Winter Assembly," Principal Stevens said. "Acknowledge the positive impact you've had." "I'd prefer you didn't," Reese said honestly. "I don't want recognition. I just want the school to be safer for everyone." Principal Stevens looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, that's exactly the attitude that makes you deserve recognition. But I'll respect your wishes. No public acknowledgement. Just my private gratitude for helping us become better." By mid-November, something remarkable happened. Reese had a real, genuine friend group. Beyond Griffin, she'd connected with the kids from Sci-Fi Club, several students from her self-defense classes, and even some athletes who respected her skills. They ate lunch together, hung out on weekends, texted in group chats about everything from homework to movies to philosophy. She was incredibly happy. On Thanksgiving weekend, Aunt Patricia had the day off, and they cooked dinner together in their small apartment. It was simple. Chicken instead of turkey, boxed stuffing, canned cranberry sauce. But it felt special. "What are you grateful for this year?" Patricia asked as they ate. Reese thought about it. Griffin's friendship. Finding out I could defend myself without becoming someone I'd hate. Getting a scholarship. Having you. "I'm grateful for you too, honey. And for your resilience. You've been through so much, and you keep choosing to be kind, even when it would be easier to be bitter. Mum taught me that. To be gentle when possible, but strong when necessary. She would be so proud of you." After dinner, Reese pulled out the letter she'd written to her mother and read it again. Then she wrote a new one. "Dear Mum, it's been 6 months since you died, and sometimes it still doesn't feel real. But I'm learning to live with your absence, to carry your memory without letting it define me. I broke my promise. I fought. But I did it in a way that I hope would make you proud, only when necessary, with complete control, showing mercy when I could have shown violence. I'm going to compete again, not like Dad, not obsessively, not destructively, but as an athlete, a scholar, someone who respects the art and uses it to build rather than destroy. I have friends now, real ones, people who see me completely and choose to be around me anyway. I have plans for the future. I have hope. I wish you were here to see it. But I think somehow, you know, I love you, I miss you, and I'm trying every day to be the person you raised me to be, someone who chooses kindness, who stands up for what's right, who uses strength to protect rather than dominate. Thank you for everything you gave me, including the courage to break a promise when keeping it would have meant losing myself. Your daughter, Reese." She folded the letter and added it to the album, then went to bed feeling at peace. The semester continued its forward momentum. Finals approached, winter break loomed, and Reese maintained her new equilibrium. She studied hard, trained regularly, spent time with friends, and helped other students when they needed it. 2 weeks before winter break, something unexpected happened. Trent approached her during lunch. "Can we talk?" Outside, Reese glanced at Griffin, who nodded encouragement. She followed Trent out to the hallway. "I'm leaving Westridge," Trent said without preamble, "transferring to another school for the spring semester, somewhere I can start fresh, without the reputation I built here." "That's probably smart." "Yeah." Trent shifted uncomfortably. "Before I go, I wanted to tell you something. What you did for me, beating me, showing mercy, giving me a chance to change, that was the most important thing anyone's ever done for me. You saw potential in me to be better, even when I was actively being my worst. That's rare. Everyone deserves a chance to change. Not everyone takes it. I'm taking it. I'm going to be better, For real this time. He paused. I'll probably always remember you as the person who kicked my ass and then helped me up. That's the kind of person I want to be too. Good luck, Trent. You too, Reese. And thank you. For everything. He walked away, and Reese watched him go, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. She'd never expected to impact Trent Vaughan's life positively. She'd just wanted him to stop hurting her. But somehow, in defending herself, she'd also given him something valuable. A mirror that showed him who he was and could be. That evening, she texted Griffin, "Trent's transferring schools." His reply, "End of an era. How do you feel about it?" Weird, but mostly relieved, like the last piece of that chapter is closing. Good. Time for the next chapter, the one where we get out of Ohio and do amazing things. Can't wait. The last day before winter break arrived, with grey skies and cold wind. Reese walked through Westridge High, remembering her first days here, terrified, grieving, determined to be invisible. She thought about Ghost Girl, that nickname that had been meant as mockery, but had actually been accurate. She had been a ghost, barely existing, trying not to be seen. Now people greeted her in hallways. Teachers knew her name. She had friends waiting at her locker, plans for lunch, invitations to hang out over break. She was solid, real, present. At the final bell, Griffin met her at her locker. "We made it. One semester down. One semester down. Want to celebrate? Coffee? Movie? Solemn reading of Victorian literature?" Reese laughed. "Coffee's good." They walked through the parking lot together, passing the spot where the confrontation had happened weeks ago. That space felt different now, just pavement, just a place, no longer charged with significance. "You know what I realized," Griffin said, as they reached the sidewalk. "This whole thing, your whole story, it's not really about fighting, it's about finding your voice." "What do you mean?" "You came here silent, invisible, trying not to exist. Slowly you learned to speak up, to take up space, to defend yourself in every way, verbally, physically, emotionally. Fighting was just one method, but the real victory was refusing to stay silent and small." Reese thought about that as they walked. "I think you're right. The physical fight was just a symbol of a bigger choice, to stop accepting mistreatment, to stop making myself small, to stop believing I had to endure abuse to keep a promise." "Exactly. You found your voice. And now you're helping other people find theirs. We're helping people find their voices. True. Team effort. We're basically the dynamic duo of social justice." Griffin struck a dramatic superhero pose. "Griffin and Reese, fighting evil, one bully at a time. That's terrible. You're right. We need a better tagline. I'll workshop it." They reached Been There, Done That, and ordered their usual drinks. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, no relation to the teacher, had gotten to know them over the past weeks and greeted them warmly. "The usual corner booth is waiting," she said with a smile. They settled in, coffee warming their hands, and looked out at downtown Riverside. The town had seemed hostile and foreign when Reese first arrived. Now it just seemed like a place, not home exactly, but not enemy territory either, a stopping point on the way to somewhere else. "Where do you think we'll be in 5 years?" Griffin asked suddenly. "College, training, competing maybe. But where? What will your life look like?" Reese considered. I think I'll be someone who uses strength to help people. Maybe teaching, maybe competing, maybe something else. But always with that core principle. Strength used to protect, not dominate." "That sounds like you. What about you?" "Investigative journalism. Uncovering corruption, telling stories nobody wants told, afflicting the comfortable and comforting the afflicted." Griffin grinned. "Basically the same thing you're doing, just with words instead of martial arts. We're going to change the world, or at least our small corners of it." They talked until the coffee shop closed, making grand plans and small observations, dreaming about futures while appreciating the present. When they finally left, the street lamps were glowing in the dark, and Riverside looked almost beautiful. Reese walked home alone, Griffin having gone the opposite direction, and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd accomplished. She'd survived. More than that, she'd transformed, fought back when necessary, showed mercy when possible, and somehow emerged stronger and kinder than she'd been before. Her mother had wanted her to have a normal life, but this life, with its struggles and triumphs, its pain and growth, its lessons learned the hard way, this was better than normal. This was real. That night, she added one final entry to her collection of letters to her mother. Dear Mum, the first semester is over. I survived it. More than that, I grew through it. I learned that promises sometimes need to be broken to honor the spirit of what we promised, that peace isn't always possible, but mercy usually is, that strength used responsibly is better than strength hidden away, that fighting and violence aren't the same thing, that standing up for yourself doesn't mean becoming someone cruel. I have a future now, friends, plans, hope. I think Dad's problem wasn't that he could fight. It was that he didn't know how to stop, didn't know how to be anything else. I won't make that mistake. I'll be someone who can fight when necessary, but prefers peace, someone who has strength but uses it wisely. Thank you for trying to protect me from Dad's fate. But I'm not him, Mum. I'm yours too. I have his skills and your heart. That's a powerful combination. I'll make you proud. I promise. Love always, Reese. She folded the letter, added it to the album, and went to bed feeling ready for whatever came next. Winter break passed peacefully. Reese trained, read, spent time with Griffin, and prepared mentally for the spring semester. She exchanged emails with her future college coach, discussing training regimens and academic expectations. She helped her aunt around the apartment, cooked dinners, watched old movies. On Christmas, Patricia gave her a present, new training gear, high quality and expensive. For your future, her aunt said, your mother would want you to have the best. Reese gave her aunt a framed photo, one she'd found in her mother's things, showing Patricia and Sarah as young women, laughing at some long-forgotten joke. For remembering, Reese said. They spent a quiet holiday together, honoring memory while celebrating present and future. When school resumed in January, Reese walked into Westridge High, feeling fundamentally different from the girl who'd first arrived in August. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't defined by what had been done to her, but by how she'd responded to it. The spring semester brought new challenges and opportunities. Reese took on a leadership role in the Student Advisory Committee, helping develop better bullying prevention programs. Her self-defense classes became an official after-school club, sanctioned and supported by the administration. She maintained her grades while intensifying her training, preparing for college-level competition. Griffin continued his journalistic crusades, eventually writing a long-form article about the school's transformation that got picked up by a regional newspaper. Local students stand against bullying sparks school-wide change, the headline read. Reese groaned when she saw it, but Griffin was unrepentant. The story needed to be told, he insisted. Not for you, for everyone else who needs to know that change is possible. By March, something remarkable had happened. Bullying incidents at Westridge High had dropped by 70%. Students were actively intervening when they saw harassment. Teachers were better trained to recognize warning signs. The administration was actually following through with consequences. You started a revolution, Griffin said one afternoon in the library. I just defended myself. Yeah, but you did it in a way that inspired rather than intimidated. You showed that standing up doesn't mean becoming what you hate. That's revolutionary. In April, Reese competed in her first tournament since her mother's death, a regional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu championship. She was rusty, hadn't competed in months and faced opponents who'd been training steadily, but her fundamentals were solid, her understanding deep, and her mental game strong. She took third place in her division, which felt like a victory. "You're back," her coach said afterward. "Really back." "Yeah," Reese agreed, feeling the truth of it. "I am." Griffin came to watch, along with several friends from school. After the tournament, they took her out for pizza and celebratory milkshakes, and Reese felt surrounded by genuine support and affection. "I'm proud of you," Griffin said simply, "for placing third, for everything, for fighting your way back to yourself." May brought end-of-year activities and final preparations for summer. Reese would be moving to Pennsylvania in July to start early training with her college team. Griffin had been accepted to Northwestern with a substantial scholarship. Their paths were diverging geographically, but remained parallel in spirit, both heading toward futures built on their own terms, shaped by lessons learned the hard way. On the last day of school, they sat together on the front steps of Westridge High, watching students flood out into summer freedom. "We made it," Griffin said. "We really did." "Any regrets?" Reese thought about it honestly. "I regret not standing up sooner. I regret letting it get as bad as it did before I acted. But I don't regret how I handled it once I decided to stand up." "That's fair. I regret not being nicer to more people earlier. Took me too long to realize that connection is better than isolation. We were both learning. Still are, I think." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their classmates scatter to cars and buses and uncertain futures. Behind them, Westridge High stood solid and institutional, bearing silent witness to all the small dramas and large transformations that happened within its walls. "Thank you," Reese said quietly. "For everything." "Right back at you," Griffin replied. "You changed my life, you know. Showed me that one person really can make a difference if they're brave enough to try. We changed each other's lives. That's friendship." "Yeah, it is." They stood eventually, shouldering backpacks, preparing to part ways. Griffin pulled her into a hug, brief but sincere. "Stay in touch," he said. "Text me about Pennsylvania. I'll tell you about Chicago. We'll visit during breaks. This doesn't end just because we're leaving Ohio." "Deal." "And Reese, keep being brave. Keep using your strength to help people. The world needs more people like you. Same to you. Keep telling stories that matter. Always." They walked away in opposite directions. Two friends whose lives had intersected at exactly the right moment, who'd helped each other become better versions of themselves, who'd leave Westridge High having learned what too many people never learn, that standing up matters, that silence enables cruelty, that real strength includes knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. Reese walked home for the last time as a Westridge student. In 3 months, she'd be somewhere new, starting fresh, building a future on foundations laid in struggle and triumph. But for now, she was just here, in this moment, in this town, in this life she'd fought to reclaim. At home, Aunt Patricia had made dinner, a special meal to mark the end of an era. They ate together, toasted to new beginnings, and talked about what came next. "I'm going to miss you," Patricia said. "This apartment got a lot livelier when you moved in. I'll visit during breaks, and we can video chat. It's not the same, but I'm happy for you. You deserve this opportunity." That night, Reese wrote her final letter to her mother. "Dear Mom, I'm graduating tomorrow. Not literally, that's not for another week, but metaphorically. I'm graduating from grief, from fear, from hiding parts of myself to make you happy. I know that sounds harsh, but it's also liberation. You asked me to give up fighting because you were scared. I understand that now. You saw what obsession did to Dad and feared I'd follow that path. But I'm not Dad. I never was. I'm someone who can fight when necessary, but doesn't need to. Someone who has strength but uses it wisely. Someone who inherited his skills but your heart. This year broke me and rebuilt me. I learned that promises made in hospital rooms sometimes need to be reinterpreted. That peace and surrender aren't the same thing. That standing up for yourself is different from becoming violent. That mercy is harder than revenge. That transformation is always possible if you're brave enough to try. I'm going to compete again, Mom. Not obsessively, not destructively, but as an athlete, a scholar, someone who respects the art and uses it to connect rather than dominate. I'm going to teach others to defend themselves. I'm going to help people find their strength. I hope you'd understand. Maybe even be proud. I love you. I miss you. And I'm finally becoming who I was always meant to be. Someone strong enough to fight but wise enough to know that fighting isn't always the answer. Thank you for everything, for raising me, for loving me, for trying to protect me even when your protection came from fear rather than understanding. I'm okay now. Better than okay. I'm whole. Your daughter, Reese. She folded the letter, added it to the album, and closed the book on that chapter of her life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new lessons, but tonight she was just grateful for survival, for growth, for the hard-won peace that came from standing your ground. Reese climbed into bed, closed her eyes, and dreamed of futures where strength and compassion coexisted, where standing up didn't mean becoming cruel, where broken promises led to better understanding, where a girl called Ghost could become solid, real, and finally herself. The story of Reese Holloway, the quiet transfer student who endured weeks of escalating harassment before finally standing her ground, would become something of a legend at Westridge High. In later years, students would tell it to newcomers, how she'd tried everything peaceful first, how she'd endured impossible abuse, how she'd finally fought back with incredible skill while maintaining incredible control, how she'd shown mercy when revenge would have been easier, how one person's courage had sparked school-wide change. But the real story, the important one, wasn't about fighting at all. It was about finding your voice, about standing up for yourself without becoming someone you'd hate, about using strength to protect rather than dominate, about the courage to break promises when keeping them would mean losing yourself. It was about transformation, redemption, and the hard truth that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, but sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand your ground. Reese Holloway learned both lessons, and in teaching them to others, through action, through example, through mercy, she became the hero of her own story, which is the only kind of hero that really matters.